Janine, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Joe, are we live? Okay. Good evening, everyone. This meeting is being held in accordance with the schedule of meetings adopted at the organizational meeting held on January 6, 2020. Adequate notice of this regular meeting of the Kenilworth Board of Education has been provided to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and local source. A copy has been filed with the Kenilworth Borough Clerk, posted in the board office, the Kenilworth Borough Hall, Brearley and Harding Schools, as provided by the Open Public Meetings Act. The meeting time has been changed to 5:30 p.m. via notice on April 2nd, 2020. A copy of the proposed school budget has been on file for review on the district's website, and a copy of the budget appeared in the April 16th, 2020 edition of the local source. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act and in consideration of the Executive Order 107 issued by Governor Murphy, the Kenilworth Board of Education does hereby notify the public that to limit public gatherings and to mitigate any person-to-person exposure, this Kenilworth Board of Education meeting will be conducted using Zoom video conferencing. The public will be able to review live via YouTube live stream. The link will be available at 5:30 p.m. by clicking on the Watch the Meeting Live icon on the Kenilworth District homepage. Public comment will be accepted only during the public comment period in the meeting via email at publiccomments@kenilworthschools.com or by calling 908-931-9696, extension 2325. Once again, that's publiccomments@kenilworthschools.com or by calling 908-931-9696, extension 2325. Okay.
Okay, can everyone rise to salute the flag, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, I gave that to you.
Okay, can we have a roll call, Vince?
Yes. Biner.
Here.
Braun.
Here.
David.
Here.
Drogan.
Here.
Haberther.
Here.
Jankowicz.
Here.
Ladati.
Here.
Panici. Dr. Panici, can you hear me?
Yes, here.
Zimmerman. Okay. Mrs. Zimmerman did state that she might be a couple minutes late.
Okay, we have a quorum to proceed.
Yes.
So you want me to tell? The purpose of this evening's meeting is to present the 2020-2021 annual school district budget to the community and to adopt the budget. Mr. Ganella.
Good evening, President David, Superintendent Arlington, Finance Chair Ladati, board members, members of the public watching this evening remotely. I've been honored to annually present the Kenilworth Board of Education budget for the past 31 years, and we have in the past crossed many challenging bridges: the dissolution of the regional district, the opening of David Brearley, massive reductions to state aid, significant increases to health benefits, tough rounds of negotiations, and several difficult budget defeats. This evening's presentation is dramatically different and more difficult than any of those 30 previous presentations. Despite the challenges in the past, there was always optimism of the future, optimism on our ability to move forward and get the job done, optimism in our children. Today's experiences are different, and we need to be mindful of that while balancing the educational needs of future generations of Kenilworth children. Moving out of phases 1, 2, and 3 of the budget reviews, the Finance and Facility Committee and Administration recommended reducing the tax levy by $207,000 prior to approving the budget for submission to the Executive County Superintendent of Schools. On March 16, 2020, the Board of Education adopted a tentative 2020-2021 budget for submission to the Executive County Superintendent. The Executive County Superintendent, upon review of the educational merits and financial technical merits, approved the budget for advertising and public review. Then COVID-19, with all its horror, took hold of our great state and community. In preparation for the April 29th public hearing, the Finance and Facility Committee met on April 5th, 2020 to review the status of the budget and to discuss the impact of COVID-19 crisis may have on the budget, the community, and our goal of moving student achievement in a positive direction. The outcome of that meeting was a recommendation that is reflected in this evening's budget adoption to assist the taxpayers by reducing the tax levy an additional $150,000. On April 15th, the committee assumed that there would be some savings due to the transition to virtual learning, and those savings would result in an increase in general fund free balance, which could be appropriate to reduce the tax burden. On April 13th, 2020, the New Jersey Assembly and Senate passed A 3904, S 2337. Governor Murphy signed the bill into law on April 14th, 2020. This law dictates how school districts must respond to the COVID-19 pandemic, including how compensation, benefits, and emoluments covered by the collective bargaining agreement should be handled, and how certain services due to the school closure are to be treated. The new law puts the burden on the public schools to make the private sector whole. We are in the process of renegotiating several of our current agreements and working on some other arrangements. Though many of the savings we were expecting to have been wiped out by this legislation, some are still going to be realized, such as transportation for athletics, officials for athletics, electric savings, and a milder than normal winter will produce some savings on natural gas. A budget is a plan. It is a plan based on various assumptions. What is enrollment going to be? What is the weather forecast going to be? How much paper will be needed? Will there be an influx of special needs students requiring specialized services? Predicting accurately what will happen 6 to 18 months in the future is the essence of budgeting. But how do we accurately predict a budget that some variables are unknown tomorrow, let alone 18 months from now? COVID-19 has made the budgeting world very, very difficult to navigate. Obviously, we remain concerned with the overall financial environment and the impact it will have on our educational programs moving into 2020, 2021. In troubled times, schools are often called to pick up the pieces and asked, more often required, to do more and more. Schools are typically asked to provide these services because we are set up to efficiently provide these services better than other agencies that exist, even though sometimes these services have nothing to do with education. These are completely uncharted waters we're going through. Will the economic downturn and increase in unemployment lead to an increase in homelessness, resulting in an increase in responsibility for us to provide transportation, educational services to homeless students who last resided in Kenilworth, but currently reside in another municipality? Will there be an increase in the percentage of our population that are eligible for free and reduced breakfast and lunch services, resulting in an increase in other services we are required to provide immediately, but funding typically lagging a year behind? Will there be an increased demand for social services, social emotional assistance, psychological services, or counseling services due to the fragile nature of returning students? Will guidelines prevent certain students with immune suppressed issues from returning to school in September and require intensive home instruction program or alternative program? Will there be an increase in the population of students who are totally fearful of returning, requiring us to provide them homeschooling or out-of-district placement services and being responsible for transportation and tuition at rates sometimes in excess of $100,000 per student? Will school closures be extended into 2020, 2021, making us responsible for providing virtual instruction? Will we be required to provide devices to all students, regardless of their ability to pay? Will we be required to provide additional remedial services in 2020, 2021 because of the loss of direct instruction in 1920? When we do return to school, will we be required to provide personal protective equipment and screen all students and staff for COVID-related symptoms? Will we be required to continue to pay staff who are absent, become sick, or quarantined while employed? Will we have an increase in special education legal challenges or demands for supplemental services because IEPs are not really followed as indicated, or because student learning regressed during the virtual instruction? Will there be other legal challenges, collective bargaining matters, contracted service matters, unemployment matters, wrongful death suits that will drain limited educational resources? Will the legislature pass additional COVID-related bills, such as the proposed furlough bill, before the state legislature that will impact our operation? Will S 2338, which extended the state budget year to September 30th, impact our state aid and our reserves? Will the issuance of Executive Order 130 yesterday, which provides municipalities the ability to institute a grace period for the payment of the second quarter property taxes, impact our ability to receive this year's May and June tax levy from the borough? All these variables and others are unknown. Any one could impact other instructional and non-instructional programs we're currently planning on pursuing in 2020-21. Just an example, last week I issued a purchase order for over $5,000 for thermometers and face masks. Oil prices went into negative, and we are contemplating purchasing room decontamination machines for nurses' office and athletic facilities. The unemployment rate is in the double digits and increasing daily. Who would have thought any of these were remotely imaginable just a short time ago? I know on Friday I advised you that I was still comfortable with the appropriation of additional $150,000 from free balance to reduce the tax levy. But as with everything COVID related, things change rapidly. The legislature passed S 2338 that extends the state budget to September 30th. The state treasurer is currently compiling a report to the legislature on forecast of revenues, which is due May 22nd. The governor shall formulate and transmit a revised budget message for the fiscal year 2021 with the estimated balances on hands of as of October 1st instead of July 1st. That budget message is due to the state by August 25th, 2020. If there are changes, which I assume there will be to the state budget in 2021, that impact educational appropriations, it could be assumed districts would need to modify their budgets as well. I therefore expect we will be submitting an additional budget reflecting the revised reduction in state aid in September 2020. We also have to message out to our staff and our community that this fiscal crisis is not because of poor fiscal planning on our part. It is purely COVID-19 related. I am therefore asking we cautiously approach our discussion and deliberation this evening, keeping in mind all these unknown factors. There's nothing I would love to do more than implement the budget on which we worked so hard as intended. My belief, however, is that by September 2020, demands on the educational system will increase, resources will be limited, and our priorities will need to be reestablished. You want to do this, the thing? Okay. All right. Everyone can see the slideshow right now? Okay.
No.
Now everyone can see the slideshow?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next slide, Joe. All right. Next one. Okay. This is the third and final budget presentation outlining the 2020-21 annual school budget for the Kenilworth School District. The first presentation focused on the expenditure phase of one, leadership team budgets. The second reviewed in depth the technical side of the budget, focusing on the technical requirements for submitting a budget for approval to the executive county superintendent, as well as revenues, state aid, phase 2 salaries, and phase 3 school business administrator documentation expenditures. This presentation will be cumulative and will review other presentations as well as reviewing tax impact, tax rates, and looking forward to the challenges in developing the 2020-21 budget. The presentation will highlight some of the more relevant aspects of the budget and focus on the overall impact and broader overview of the budget. Go back, revenues. Yep. Okay. So as you know, we have a revenue side of the budget and an expenditure side of the budget. Here's a review of our budget revenues. You can clearly see the reduction in the appropriation of free balance and a larger than normal and desirable increase in the tax levy. Overall, revenues have decreased due to the gym project and the use of additional state aid not being used in the future budget. So overall expenditures are down $268,200. There is also an increase in the budgeted fund balance, which is surplus from the March submission. As noted earlier, that version called for an additional $150,000 to be appropriated for a total of $458,520. Okay, next slide. This slide shows you the overall expenditures, which have also decreased by the same amount of $268,200. It shows it a little different way we traditionally look at our expenditures, whereas phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. This graphically shows how and where money is being spent. You will note that several of the categories are less than the current year's budget. This is in line with the board and the administration's philosophy to redistribute funds to instructional programs. Okay, next slide. And this is a graphic showing the budget by fund, the general fund, the special revenue fund, and the debt service fund. Once again, all the numbers are the same, that same reduction of $268,200. Keep in mind, however, that $862,000 was in the 2019-20 budget for a non-recurring construction project. Next slide. To summarize the expenditure side of the budget graphically, I like to use this demonstration where the money is going. So you could see here that this is broken down into undistributed categories, which include central administration, IT, and leases and debt service, employee benefits and insurance, which are pretty much self-explanatory, the Harding School Regular Education Program, the Brearley School Regular Education Program, special education, and interscholastic athletics. Next slide, please. This shows that our budget is a balanced budget. We need to submit a balanced budget annually. Unlike some other forms of budget, we don't have the ability to print money or make up money, and therefore our budget needs to be balanced. The revenues must equal the expenditures. And this may be a concern in September if the state does reduce our state aid because of the COVID pandemic. We may be forced to reduce programs in response. Okay, next slide. So this is our tax levy cap calculation. Cap is the amount the district can raise in local taxes. The calculation starts off with the current expense, the current year tax levy adjusted for enrollment. There are then adjustments allowed for various items, none of which we were eligible for this year. I'd also like to note there has been much discussion on what will happen with regard to the tax levy cap and whether it will be modified in future years, especially once Chapter 78 is in full effect. There has been some discussion for the need for an adjustment that recognizes the escalating costs of special education. And then the final adjustment here that you'll see on line J is for the use of, line H is for the use of banked cap, which I will detail on the next slide. What is important here is that cap is based on the tax levy, not the expenditures. So next slide, Joe. So what is banked cap? Banked cap is a method to allow the school district that has not been granted approval to exceed the tax levy cap by a separate proposal to bank the unused tax levy for use in any of the next 3 succeeding budget years. In accordance with code, a district can request the use of bank cap only if it has fully exhausted all eligible statutory spending in the budget year. If you recall from the previous slide, our use of bank cap totals $42,885. That can be found on line J above. The sum of this line equals the total noted there. You will note that this year we did not generate additional banked cap. Short of monumental shifts in state aid, I do not anticipate we will be able to generate much bank cap in the foreseeable future. Important takeaways from this slide is that bank cap is not real money, but rather the authority to raise taxes above the initial tax levy cap calculation. It should not be confused with the next item we are reviewing, which is free balance and surplus and recapitulation of balances. To further discuss the cap, the tax levy cap, this slide, next slide, Joe. This slide shows a hypothetical situation to show that the cap, which is based on the tax levy, is not sustainable over time. It explains that the hard cap of 2% is actually $25,875,000 less than the increase in total of salaries and benefits alone. And that is basing salary increases on only a 2%, which based on historical data has been very difficult to achieve through the collective bargaining process. Next slide, Joe. I am hoping that at some point this is recognized. I can understand the need for limits and caps. My issue is not that, but rather the metric being used to base the cap on. I believe moving to a cap based on the total general fund would be something that the state should explore. The current system will force us in the very near future to reduce and dismantle some critical programs and limited services that we provide our students. Next slide. As mentioned earlier, this is our recapitulation of balances. There are several categories of balances that make up the recapitulation of balances, each category having specific requirements for how they can be used, how they can be accumulated, and what the maximum levels are. The first to review is unassigned free balance. Our current proposals call for the appropriation of, as we talked about earlier, $458,520 to reduce the tax levy. I've talked often over the years of our need to break our reliance on free balance to reduce the tax levy. The fine balance between the tax levy and the cap on the tax levy is being distorted by its use. If you look at the ending balances on June 30th, which is $112,000, you can see that is unsustainable. Free balance is now 0.4% of the total budget. The DOE and our auditor recommend that free balance be approximately 2% of our budget. The next category is capital reserves. Capital reserves will remain at $2,601,000. Maintenance reserve we are reducing that by $90,000 to work on some projects this summer. Emergency reserve will remain at its maximum of $250,000. Next slide. So now we're going to talk about a little bit about the tax levy and how it's calculated. Essentially, the tax levy is a simple calculation. A lot goes into it, but it's a simple calculation. You take your total budget and on the expenditure start, and you start reducing all your revenue sources. Okay, so you take your total levy, you reduce your free balance, which we talked about, which is surplus. Your withdrawal from revenues, reserves, our tuition revenue, which in our case is our relationship between Winfield and us for our send receive relationship, miscellaneous revenues, which include rental of building and interest, state aid and other restricted aids, choice aid, federal aid, debt service, aid, and then finally you come up with your current expense tax levy. Next slide, Joe. So now let's talk about a little bit about what the tax impact is on this proposed budget. We're looking at a overall tax increase of $92.55 per household. The house average assessed home of roughly $181,000. Next slide, Joe. I want to take a look at historically where our budget has been over the last 4 years and see that over the past 4 years, on average, our tax have gone up a little over 1%, which is well below the 2% cap that the state tries to hold us to. Next slide, Joe. And here you could see historically between the difference between the 2006 and 2019 tax rate, that our tax rate in Kenilworth has increased 3.77% versus some of our neighboring districts in Union County, ranging from Elizabeth at negative 1.24% up to Cranford at 11.06%. Next slide, Joe. So that concludes my presentation. If there's any questions, I'd be more than willing to take them at this time. Can you?
Any board members have any questions?
Hey, Vince, one question.
Yes.
In your initial speech, you mentioned about we would be able to modify the budget in a month or so. Could you just go over that again, if you don't mind?
Well, if the state's budget has been pushed, the ending of the state budget has been pushed to September 30th.
Right.
And the governor is now going to have to submit a new budget to the legislature. If there is any change to the state aid, reduction or increase, we would have to then recertify our budget and have it reflect it. So therefore, it's similar to when we got additional state aid over the summer. We had to resubmit our budgets. Difference there is we got more aid, which is a good thing. We didn't have to do much decision making regarding programs. We could have added programs at that point, but we decided not to. In this particular case, to make our budget balance, if let's say hypothetically there's a $100,000 reduction in our state aid, we'd have to either find additional revenues sources or reduce our program by $100,000. So that's what I was referring to.
All right, thanks.
It's all hypothetical. I don't know, but I'm just making the assumption that state aid will be reduced. And if state aid is reduced, we're going to have to resubmit another budget in August or September.
Yeah. All right,
I have a question or for Kyle. With the inability to use the temporary classrooms, is that going to cost us any additional dollars if we have to go out and lease space in another school or rebuild those or take those down?
Well, there is a possibility. We're exploring some of the options right now. Hopefully, if it comes to the demolition of it, that will be taken care of hopefully through the insurance. The rooms, we have a couple of options with that. One may cost us some money, one probably wouldn't. The one that obviously would cost us more money is better for the program. But the other one is possible as well.
Thank you. So no really significant changes dollar-wise, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, thanks.
And just want to make sure that this budget as it stands meets, I guess, at least Kyle's comfortable with it to meet his objectives. I know I mentioned it before. I just wanted to make sure, at least for this year, it gets to him where he needs to be.
Yeah, so I appreciate that question. As lean as it is, I do think built in there, as we've been talking about the last couple of months, there are some really exciting advancements that this budget helps to facilitate. So Chromebooks, technology, building teachers' capacity by some new professional learning opportunities. So like those opportunities are scant, but they are in there. And I think it keeps us on the right track with an eye on achievement for sure.
Okay, thank you.
And to that, Mark, and everybody on the board, we did make some tough decisions. I think the total figure over the last month was we cut another $360,000 off the budget, well, including the 150. But I think Kyle had to make some tough decisions. I think he had to restructure a program or two to get us to those numbers. So I really appreciate the effort there. And I know some of those programs are dear to his heart, and I think they were meaningful. So hopefully in the future, we'll be able to move, get to those programs to where he wants it to be. And also Vince put in a lot of work in also on this budget also, along with the committee. The decision to cut another 360, reduce it by another 360 was not easy for all of us on the committee.
Yeah, no, I know everyone that works on the budget works hard and is mindful of, of everything. So thank you.
Yeah, if I can just add that, we're all well aware that these are unprecedented times, and there's a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of unknown issues, and yet we're all required to proceed with adopting the budget as if, COVID never happened, which I think is really unfair, quite frankly. I mean, I felt like the state could have stepped in and maybe extended the deadline for filing a budget and so on. But, again, we're forced to go forward as if nothing happened. So I feel that's kind of unfair. But nevertheless, we did our job and we are where we are.
I would just like to say also, it is unfair because we're forced to lay out some finances that we probably could have saved, but they're mandating. However, I would thank you all. I know how hard it is to work on that budget, and the cuts that you made, I appreciate it as a taxpayer. Now I understand that the borough, the people will not have to pay taxes now. They're getting a month to be late. So it's just going to compound everything. I just appreciate all that you've done. So thank you.
Thank you, Paulette. Okay, any other questions? I guess if not, Vince, we can move to the public portion.
Okay.
Can I have a motion to open the public portion of the meeting?
That's fine.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. I have a motion made by Mrs. Drogan, second by Mr. Ladati. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the meeting is open to the public for comment. The Board of Education sets the limit for the public to speak at the board meeting to 5 minutes per person unless prior permission has been granted by the board for extended time. Let's see, in order, if you have a question, you can email your comment or question to publiccomments@kenilworthschools.com, or you can call into the meeting at 908-931-9696, extension 2325. One more time, you can email at publiccomments@kenilworthschools.com or call 908-931-9696, extension 2325.
Seriously, can't find it.
What'd you say?
All right, let's just wait a couple minutes. I got it. Do you have it? Okay. That's good. Yeah, well, you got to share the screen. Just in case.
Do you have anything yet?
No. Nope, phone didn't ring and nothing on the email, other than the test one that we sent earlier. So, okay.
Do we know if we have any active viewers?
5.
Okay.
And they're probably, half of them are probably my staff because I told them to watch.
That's really sad.
Oh, wait, we do have a call.
Oh, wonderful.
Hello, I'll help you. Hello? They hung up. That was weird. All right.
I wonder if that was a blast or something, Vince, because I'm getting it too at the same time.
Oh.
You said we have.
Oh, maybe it's a town robocall?
Yeah.
Possible. Okay. Yeah, I know.
A robocall come into an extension though.
Okay. You want to proceed then, Greg, I guess?
Board members, you okay with moving on?
Yes.
Fine.
Okay.
Motion to close the meeting to the public?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, the public portion of the meeting or the hearing is closed. All right, Vince, what's up?
Okay, so we have to vote on the 3 resolutions on this evening's agenda. Do any of them need to be voted on separately? First resolution is the budget. The second resolution is the lease for the Chromebooks, or going out to lease for the Chromebooks. And the third one is the COVID-related resolution regarding the food service agreement modification due to COVID.
Okay.
So do any of those need to be voted on separately, or can we vote on them 1 through 3?
2, 3.
Okay. Okay, so this is for 1 through 3 on the resolution, on the agenda. Biner,
Yes.
Braun,
Yes.
Drogan,
Yes.
Tabitha,
Yes.
Jankowicz,
Yes.
Ladati,
Yes.
Benici,
Yes.
Zimmerman. Oh, Zimmerman's not here yet. Nope. I'm sorry. David?
Yes.
Okay. Motion's carry unanimously.
Okay, we can move on then. We don't have a need to go into executive session. So we can skip that. And before I entertain a motion to adjourn, I just want to make a quick little announcement. On behalf of the board, I would like to express my condolences, or our condolences, to Scott Miller, Gail Cantalupo, and their families on the loss of their parents. It's very sad news. So anyway, again, our condolences go out to them and their families. And with that, I will.
Greg, I'm sorry. Real quick, can I just say something real quick?
Sure.
I was contemplating not voting for the budget, but I decided to. I was glad to hear that, as Vince said, if we do lose state aid, we find out about a month that we'd be able to have a modify our budget. Obviously, I agree with everything that Vince said. It's really disturbing. Every school district is going through this. Loss of revenue, increased cost due to COVID. So I assume that we will be losing state aid. And I just say to all of us that if we do have to modify the budget, that we're really going to have to make some tough decisions. I still think that there needs to be more cuts. I don't want to cut the core of this school system, which is educating the kids. But in this environment, I suggest to all of you that we're going to have to consider other cuts, put them on hiatus for a year, because I want to have as much money as possible to fund the core of this school system. Because if our revenues are a lot less than they are, and as Vince mentioned, all these costs can go up, even with our reserve money, and even if we do save some money through cutting budgets, we could be, we're going to have to even cut more, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars. What are we going to do? The last thing I want to do is lay off teachers. I've already seen, I think today, in Patterson, they already announced they're laying off teachers for next year. So if we do lose some state aid and if we have to modify the budget, I just say to all of you that I think we're going to have to make really tough decisions, because the last thing I want to do is lay off teachers. I don't want bigger classroom sizes. Even a month from now, if we do lose state aid, we can find out from the municipality. As was mentioned, I think today the state said you can extend the 10-day grace period for your May 1st property taxes to June 1st. And I think last week the municipality Kenilworth at the board meeting, usually I think there's an 8% interest after the 10-day grace period. I think there'll be no interest due June 1. So sometime later next month, we'll be able to find out how the property tax payments are. So that'll give us some kind of idea, because we're supposed to be getting roughly about $21 million from the property tax. So we'll see what that is, and we can hopefully project what, if any, money from the municipality will lose. So I just want to say to all of us, we may have to make really tough decisions going forward. Because again, for me, the worst case scenario is we don't want to lay off teachers, and we may have to cut things that we really don't want to, but it's going to be one of these deals. Do we fund this, or do I lay off teachers? So I just wanted to say I did vote for the budget, and hopefully things turn out to be okay. But unfortunately, we have to figure things are going to be pretty bad. So I think we should be very conservative moving forward with the budget, assuming we have to make changes. Thanks.
Okay.
I'd like to ditto what he says, of course, but even I voted for the budget, so it's okay.
Yeah. Well, as I said, not to belabor the adjournment, but as I said, at the time of or before we actually voted, these are unprecedented times, unknown issues, unanswered questions. In my mind, the state should have allowed us to defer adoption of this budget until more of those issues are known and questions are answered. That didn't happen, so we are, where we are, and yeah, we'll cross whatever bridge comes our way when it gets here. So anyway, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Hey, Vince, do we have to somehow verbally adopt this? I mean, last time the chairs of the head of the committees had to make a motion or something to get this virtually signed or something.
Yeah, well, true. I guess we could, we already voted on it, but if, I guess you were
I'm
gonna
fine then. I just wanted to make sure we were okay.
Yeah, we're
Okay,
okay.
good then. I make a motion, we adjourn.
But we already had the motion. so
Okay, second.
waiting on a second.
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Stay well, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Care.
So-
Yeah.
Well, hang in there.